This is Big Tasty Sports.
Welcome to a new edition of the NFL Futures Report after week 3. We're going to be trying a little bit of a new format this week. I have updated everything on the Futures dashboard, which you can get access to by going to bigtastysports.com, click NFL Futures. If you would like access to that, you'll see it today. I'm going to walk through it a division at a time. Really quick, I will just show you, and if you're on the podcast, I'll talk about this as we go through, so you should still be able to see it without or understand without too much trouble. But I do just want to point out, if you look at the Buffalo Bills here, the different things that we're going to talk about a division at a time is I have my projected wins for this team, the floor and the ceiling that I have for them. And this is still, after only 3 weeks, going to be pretty wide on a lot of these teams for me, because games that I think are within a 60-40 split, I have as toss-ups. That's why the floor and ceiling can be pretty far apart. I have where Vegas currently has the line set and the best odds for the over and under. Then on the right-hand side for each team, I have the best odds for them to win the division currently, the implied probability of that, my probability of them winning. And then on the bottom, the strength of schedule is I use a standard deviation. So the higher a positive number, closer to 2, the stronger a schedule, the lower a negative number, so closer to -2 means a weaker schedule. And then the bet signal is looking ahead at the schedule for each team. Is there a reason that you would want to bet the over or the under if you like it? Now, the bet signal does not mean run out and bet it, because there are going to be some things today where I have a bet signal, but I don't like a bet on a team. It just means if you did like it based on the schedule, here's what you should probably be doing. So we're going to walk through this a division at a time and talk about where we stand. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out bigtastysports.com, follow at Big Tasty Sports on X as well. All right, first let's start with the AFC East. So here we're getting what's starting to look like a 2-team race between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. New England, their defense is good and their offense is kind of okay, but I don't think that they can keep up with those top 2 teams. And then the Jets, unless they bring in a different quarterback, I think are dead in the water at this point. Their defense is good, but not good enough to win them games single-handedly. So looking if there's any value on bets here, you can see that I don't have any bet signals for any of the teams in this division. When you look at the division odds, I'm pretty well aligned with where the odds currently sit. You know, there's slight differences, but not enough for me to think that it's actionable. And then in terms of the over/under on win totals, the one that might stick out here is the Miami Dolphins. So Vegas has them over/under 11.5. I have them projected for 13 wins right now, but the over is juiced to -140. And so, you know, and I have their floor at 11 still. I mean, the ceiling at 17. I don't think they're going undefeated. That's not what it means. But I do think that Miami, if they keep playing the way they are and Tua stays healthy, I think the defense will keep improving. So I think there is a good chance for Miami to get to 13 here. But at -140, I'm not that interested in it. Honestly, even though I have the bet signal at none, what I would possibly be interested in here is if they do go lose to the Bills in Buffalo this next week, that number might come back to probably still over under 11.5, but we might get something closer to -110 or something like that. At that point, I would consider that as a possibility, because I don't think that's by any means a bad loss if they lose to Buffalo and we'd get a better line. So nothing for me in the AFC East, but you can see all of the projections there if you're watching YouTube, and if not, and you're on the podcast, just know that I'm pretty well aligned across the board with where the markets are, outside of potentially the Dolphins over on their win total. Next, let's go to the AFC North. This also is starting to look to me like a 2-team race. Now, less so than the AFC East, because Cincinnati could rebound. We know, I mean, Cincinnati was projected as one of the Super Bowl favorites going into the season. So we can't sleep on the possibility of them coming back, but this injury for Joe Burrow is concerning to me, and it's kind of concerning for the long run, not just the short term. He can't move in the pocket against bad teams or mediocre teams like the Rams. Maybe that's doable. I mean, they squeaked out a win barely, but against good teams, I think it's really problematic for the Bengals. And then the Steelers continue to just flounder on offense. They got lucky with a 3 turnover game from Las Vegas to win their last one, but I've been underwhelmed by the Steelers as well. Their offensive line doesn't look as much better as we thought it would. So to me, this looks like Baltimore and Cleveland, and those two play each other this week, which is why it's interesting to think about betting either of them, because we have a game that is likely to be close. I'm not sure which way I would go on that game. In terms of the futures, though, since that's what we're here for, let's look and see if there's any value. Right now, you can get Baltimore's win total at 9.5. I have them projected for 11 wins, and I actually would favor them to get to 12 over being at 10. So I would say this is like an 11.3 for me. But the over again is juiced to minus 140. And the game that you're playing here is, okay, if they go in and they beat the Browns, this probably moves to 10.5. You probably don't get 9.5. I mean, you can always do alt totals, but in terms of across the board, what's available. But if they go in and they lose to the Browns, sort of like with Miami, you're probably going to get 9.5 at minus 110 or something like that, in which case I think that becomes a pretty good bet. And so, yeah, I mean, again, if you want actual bets that I'm making, check out Big Tasty Sports on the blog. I have a futures action plan that comes out on Tuesdays. And so you can see what I'm betting there. You can probably get a sense for where I am. But that's what I'd say on Baltimore. And then in terms of the odds to win the division, you can get plus 200 on Baltimore right now. That to me seems pretty good. I still have them with a 42% chance to win the division. I have Cleveland at 38. So most of the divisional win share to me is on these two teams. I have 10% each for Cincy and Pittsburgh. And so I like at 200 and then 250 for the Browns. I think those are good odds on either team. One of the odds on one of those teams is going to go down and one of them is going to go up. So you can see if you can guess which one and you could get better odds. In terms of other win totals here, Cincinnati's still at 9.5, but man, seriously, I mean, some books are going to have this at 8.5 because it's minus 188 to the under. I still haven't projected for 8 wins, so no real value to me there. No value on anything for the Steelers. In terms of bet signals, the only one I have is betting Cleveland's under now, if you like their under. And that's mostly because if they win one more game, we are going to lose that 10.5. Not saying that it interests me, but if you are really on, or no, I'm sorry, if they lose that game, we're going to lose the under 10.5 at the line that we have it. So you could consider that. Let's move on to the AFC South. This is a division that I will fully admit I thought was going to be all Jacksonville Jaguars. So far, they look pretty terrible on both sides of the ball. And Indianapolis and Houston look a lot more respectable than I thought they would. I'm still not very high on Tennessee, though, again, they have a good enough defensive line, decent coaching, and, Hopkins and Henry and some good skill, Spears, even some good skill position players where they're going to be in games, especially against teams like they face in the AFC South. So this looks like it's going to end up being a closer divisional race than what we thought. In terms of bet signals here, I have an over on the Houston Texans. I think it's possible that they beat Pittsburgh this week. I'm not saying, I haven't bet that, so I'm not saying they do, but I think Pittsburgh's a little overvalued right now, and Houston may be coming off that win against Jacksonville. You could say that they're a little overvalued as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that game goes down. But right now, Vegas has this at 5.5. The over is juiced to minus 140, and I have their projected win total still at 5, though I do have a ceiling of 9. So you could guess where I'm probably going in terms of whether I actually bet it or not. The odds there for them to win the division, this is one where I would say, and I'm not going to flip over there right now, but if you look at all the lines that I have, this is plus 800 or 900 most places. I think it's DraftKings where you can still get plus 1,100. So I don't know. Maybe that's worth a tiny sprinkle. I have them at a 10% chance to win the division. That implied probability is 8.33. So it's not as big of a gap as you might like to see. Indianapolis, not too much interest for me there. I think that I have them projected for 7 wins. Vegas is at 7.5. Jacksonville, I still have projected for 10. Maybe I'm still too high on them. You could say that. This has become such a wide variance for me. I have the floor at 5 and the ceiling at 14. Basically, I'm saying I have no idea what to do with Jacksonville, and I'm not sure where they end up. If you do still believe in Jacksonville at all, you're getting plus 150 on them to win the division when it was minus 170 not too long ago. So if you believe in them at all, that is a big swing in the odds that you might want to consider. And then on Tennessee, I have them projected for 8. Vegas has it at 7.5. So again, not a ton of value for me there. One interesting thing, I forgot to talk about this on the first two divisions, but if we look at that strength of schedule number, just real quick, the Jets have the easiest remaining schedule in the AFC East. The scan it here, Baltimore has the easiest remaining schedule, and Cleveland actually the hardest in the AFC North. And in the AFC South, we have Indianapolis with the easiest remaining schedule and Tennessee with the most difficult. Going on next to the AFC West, Kansas City looks to be pulling away a little bit here. I suppose if you believe the Chargers can get it together, maybe you still like them a little bit, but Mike Williams out now. The injury bug continues to bite the Chargers. The bad coaching bug continues to bite the Chargers. The organization that can't really get it together, along with the Vikings and a few others, continues to bite them, even though they won one game. That was pretty much a toss-up. So in the AFC West, Kansas City is over under. You can still get plus 100 on over 11.5. I'm up to projecting them for 14 wins, but the thing to notice for me here is I have their floor at 12. I just think Kansas City is the class of this division. Kansas City is one of those teams that will be favored or close to it in every game that they play. And so, yes, they're going to continue to lose some more games, but they're going to be right there with a chance to win everyone. This isn't a team that should have any games where they go into it thinking they're going to lose. Their divisional odds are at minus 275 is the best you can get. Implied probability of 73.33% on that. I have their probability of winning the division at 85%. I have the Chargers at 15, Raiders and Broncos at 0. I mean, this is again where theoretically, do those teams have any chance? Yeah, it's probably like 1% or 0.5% or something, but I'm just putting them at 0. I don't see it happening for the sake of my projections. And I do have Kansas City's bet signal as an over. Again, if they go win another game, this is going back up to 12.5. And so if you want over 11.5, plus 100 still seems like a pretty good line. But you do have to believe that Kansas City's getting it figured out if you want to go there. If you still think that those offensive weapons aren't good enough, or that the defense isn't as strong as it's looked, maybe that doesn't seem as good to you. On Denver, I'm pretty much aligned with the market. Man, they've looked ugly. I do have an over bet signal there if you like their over. I mean, they go to Chicago this week. I've already bet them to win that game. Obviously, that doesn't mean they will. I had a bad week last week, up overall for the year. But obviously, I have weeks where I'm just really wrong. And last week was one of those. We'll see about this week. The Raiders, I have an under bet signal. They go to the Chargers this week. If you want to go under 6.5 wins, you can get plus 120. I do have them projected for 6 wins, but I still do have the ceiling at 10. I think the Raiders are a little bit better than what their record indicates. And then the Chargers, I don't have a bet signal there. It's over under 9.5. I have them projected for 8 wins, but the under is juiced to minus 145. So you have to lay a lot of juice to get on the under 9.5 there. In terms of strength of schedule, I have the Broncos with the easiest remaining schedule and the Chiefs with the most difficult. NFC East. Dallas Cowboys coming off an atrocious loss to the Cardinals that has people jumping off the bandwagon left and right. Philadelphia with a convincing win over the Buccaneers, who might not be as good as we thought they were. That has people jumping back on board. This looks like another 2-team race to me. I mean, I think Washington's respectable, and with Brian Daboll there, the Giants will probably continue to at least cause a few problems for people, but I see this as a 2-team race. So the Cowboys over under 10.5. Man, this was up to 11.5 juice to the over. Now you're getting minus 115 on over 10.5. I have their floor at 11 wins. I could be wrong about them bouncing back. Maybe I'm really wrong about who this team is, but I'm going to give a team that's looked as dominant as Dallas a pass on one game, even if it is a loss to one of the worst teams in the league. They were inside the 10 4 times and came away with 6 points. I mean, I just think it's an outlier outcome, and it happens. Odds to win the division, you can get plus 165 now. This was down to plus 105 or plus 110 before last week. I still have them with a 45% chance to win the division, so I have a little bit of value there. The Giants, no bet signal, but Vegas is at 6.5. I have them projected for 5 wins. Can get the under at minus 110. Again, I have enough variance here that, if you follow me or seen what I bet, I'm not betting most of the stuff that I'm telling you. I have to really like the position, not just say, oh, I have what I think is a little bit of an edge. That's not enough for me in the futures market. I have them down to a 0% chance to win the division. Philly, I have projected for 11 wins. You can get under 11.5 at plus 135. But again, here, variance between 8 and 16. I mean, Philly's good. It's just the second half of their schedule is hard. I do have an over bet signal here, which would keep me probably off of betting the under as well. And then the odds to win the division, minus 150, the best that you can get. That's a 60% probability, and I only have them at 55% to win the division. Washington, Vegas has them over under 6.5. I'm projecting them for 6 wins, and you can get the under at plus 130. I do have an under bet signal here. If they go in and lose to Philadelphia, as the line would suggest they should, you are not going to get plus 130 on under 6.5 anymore. Obviously, if they upset the Eagles, it moves the other way. That's just the way this stuff always works. But maybe there's a little bit of value for you there if you think that Washington is not great. NFC North, what appears to be another 2-team race, though I will suggest that Minnesota is not 100% out of it. Oh, I didn't do hardest and easiest schedule here, did I? So I have the hardest remaining schedule as the Washington Commanders by quite a bit, actually, and the easiest remaining schedule as the Eagles, though not by a ton. All right, NFC North. Let's talk about Detroit and Green Bay, because these teams play each other again, and so that makes betting these teams on futures tricky because that's a closely lined game, and it really seems to me to be a coin flip. If you have a strong opinion, you could get some value on futures, but you could also just go bet the game. So I'll probably be leaving any futures bets on these teams alone for now until next week shakes out. I don't have a bet signal on either team, but I have Detroit going over that 9.5 is what I'm projecting with 10 wins, but you have to lay minus 125. I have the Packers projected for 9, so under 9.5, but you have to lay minus 130. And on the division odds, I just don't have a lot of value on either line. The Bears, the Bears are one of my biggest downgrades of the week. I think they're a complete mess, and I'm not sure how they rebound significantly at this point. So I have them slated for 3 wins now. Under 5.5 is minus 120. I have not bet that yet. I'm not sure how confident I am on that 3. I still have to think about it, but man, they've looked bad. And then Minnesota, it's just been ugly, but they're down to 6.5. I mean, this was 8.5 before the season, and you can go over 6.5 at minus 120. I do have them slated for 7 wins, but also, I mean, are they going to trade? Are they going to trade things? They should beat Carolina this week, but they have San Francisco and Kansas City coming up. If they go 1-3 in their next 4, I just wonder if they blow the whole thing up, which makes me concerned about playing anything on them. I do have them with the most value as a division winner right now at plus 600, but it's still not a ton of value. I have them with an 18% chance to win the division. In terms of the schedules here, I have the hardest schedule left as Minnesota, another thing that would keep me off of them. Talked about a couple of those tough games they have coming up. And I have the easiest schedule as the Chicago Bears. Maybe that's something that keeps me off of betting their win total under. Between the Lions and the Packers, I do have the Packers with an easier schedule. So if you think these teams are pretty even, perhaps you think the value is on betting the Packers to win the division at plus money, as much as it pains me to say that. All right, let's move to the NFC South. We've got 2 divisions left here for this week's futures report. First, we're going to talk about the teams that are at the top, which I would say is Atlanta and New Orleans, but maybe you have to throw Tampa Bay in there right now too. Atlanta looks utterly anemic on offense, and it's problematic. New Orleans has Jameis Winston playing for the next few weeks. They do get Alvin Kamara back, but they haven't hit 20 points yet despite all their weapons. It seems really problematic. The Saints defense does seem stronger than the Falcons, and the Buccaneers defense seems stronger than the Falcons. Not sure about that Tampa offense. However, when they play teams that aren't going to be able to get any pressure, Baker can probably stand back there and hit those weapons that they still do have with the Buccaneers. Carolina at this point sucks. I have them in my bottom 3 teams in the league at this point. Let's start with their over under 5.5. And I have them slated for 4 wins, but you have to lay minus 148 to get there. That's a big price tag. The bet signal is on under here because I do like the Vikings to go in and beat them this week, and you're probably dropping to over under 4.5 wins once that happens. Atlanta is over under 9.5, which is still a pretty, I was surprised to see that line stay so high after their loss. I have them projected for 9, but man, again, I have them between 7 and 14. I feel a little bit lower on this team than what my projections say, but I can't just confidently say that lots of teams are going to beat them. They're going to have to figure out a way to throw the ball some. So if anything, maybe you could consider an under 9.5 here at minus 108. That doesn't seem terrible. And I may consider that, but for me, it's because I have a decent position on Atlanta over 8 wins. So that would be a middling position for me to get under 9.5 at a decent line. Odds to win the division I have pretty much in line with market at plus 165. The Saints, 9.5 is their over-under. I have them projected for 9 wins, and you can go under at plus 116. I will talk in a minute here about why I hesitate on these unders for these teams. I am pretty much in line with the market on their divisional odds. Actually, I have them a little bit worse than what the market has. And then the Tampa Bay Bucks, over under 8.5. I have them projected for 6 wins. I still am not a believer in this team. You can go under at minus 115. I mean, this line was minus 6.5 to open the season. So minus 8.5, we're getting 2 more wins. They can go 8-9, which is, I think, a successful season for the Bucks, and you would still win that bet. I do have them at a 25% chance to win the division. So for me, that's the best value here at plus 400 right now. Only because I just don't believe in the Falcons and the Saints either. I don't really believe in any of these teams. The reason that I'm hesitant to bet under, as you can see here, is the hardest schedule remaining to me is the Bucks, though it's not that strong. But the Falcons and the Saints have the 2 easiest schedules remaining in the entire league, with the Saints having the easiest. Hard to take unders when they far and away have the easiest schedules remaining. All right, let's wrap it up with the NFC West, where the Arizona Cardinals upset the Cowboys to get their first win of the year. Woohoo. Good job, Cardinals. They are playing hard. Their run game has looked good. I mean, I have to say that the Cardinals and Rams both look better than I thought they would to this point in the season. I have to admit that. I thought they'd both be pretty much trash. I had the Cardinals slated for 2 wins. I have moved them up to 3, basically keeping them the same, but adding in the Cowboys win. You can go under 4.5 at plus 120. If you don't think that the Cardinals are very good still, man, I don't know that I'll add more because I have 2 bets on the Cardinals under 4.5 already, and I don't know that I want to add more exposure there. But my goodness, plus 120 is as good as this line was weeks ago. So if you don't believe in the Cardinals, I think this is a pretty good line you're getting again if you aren't in on the under 4.5 at plus 120. And I do have the under bet signal there. They have to go play the 49ers this week. And while that shouldn't move this line a ton, it probably goes from plus 120 to plus 100 or something like that. So this is likely the best line you're going to get on under 4.5 for the Cardinals. The Rams also looking better than I thought they would. I have to give them credit for that. I have them all the way up to a projection of 6 wins. Now, I do have their ceiling at 7. So maybe I'm a little high, but I think what I've seen is okay from them. And I think they're going to be in a lot more games than I thought, and it only takes one weird play to win a game when you're in it. You can go under 6.5 wins at plus 125. That also is a good line compared to where this has been historically. So if you're not a believer in the Rams, you are getting a pretty good line on the under. Nothing for me on either of these teams to win the division. I mean, really, the 49ers are winning this division. Minus 490 now, though, so you're not going to bet that. I'm pretty much in line with the market. I think it's an 85% chance they win the division. They'd have to totally fall apart, which I don't see happening. In fact, I have them projected for 14 wins with a floor of 13. In Vegas, it's over under 12.5 and minus 115 to the over. It's hard to take an over 12.5 in the NFL, but my goodness, this team is very likely, unless they fall apart in some games, to hit that 13 win mark. Not sure that I'll bet it. I have enough on them in other ways, to be honest, that I don't really feel the need to. And then the Seattle Seahawks, who I could really use coming in second in this division and holding off the Rams, over under 8.5. I have them projected for 9 wins, which you can get plus 102. So if you think the Seahawks have recovered okay, not a bad look. They go and play the Giants this week. I think the Giants are live to win that game, but I also think Seattle's live to win that game. If they do go and beat the Giants, at the very best, you're going to get minus 120 on the over 8.5. It could even move back to 9.5, possibly. So I do have the over bet signal on them. If you like the over, now would be the time to take them. If you don't like the over, totally get it. And really, I'm not betting them. I already have a small bet, unfortunately, on them to win the division at worse odds than plus 650. I don't think it happens, so I'm going to stay away from that. Remaining schedule here, I have the easiest schedule as the 49ers, not surprisingly, because they play all of these teams. And I have the hardest schedule as the Arizona Cardinals. It's not an incredibly difficult schedule, but it is a little bit over the middle in terms of difficulty. All right, that is a look at all of the futures for the divisions. If you're interested in the dashboard, again, check out bigtastysports.com. And you know what? Just do it. Even if you're not, there's bets and articles. You'll just, give me a little boost for my day if you check it out. Like the video, subscribe. I appreciate it. Have a great one. Best of luck with all your betting.